So you want to start with just some of your own personal history around activism?
I don't know how I became a pacifist, except that my brother registered as a conscientious objector in World War II. So our family was concerned, and just about that time, I was in Vermont actually. I came in July of 1941, and of course the war started in December. So I had a lot of guilt feelings during the war because I wasn't speaking out. You know, I rolled bandages. I was an air raid warden, which sounds kind of silly, but it was silly, standing on the street corner in the middle of the night looking for planes that was never showed up.
Out here on Main Street?
No, my route was Summer Street.
Uh-huh.
And I had to knock on doors and scold people if they had lights on. And then it wasn't until the Vietnam War, actually, when Scudder Parker started the St. Johnsbury Peace Team, that I felt free to speak out, because I was with, you know, everybody else was against the war, and there were a lot of people against the war, and it was easier to talk about it. And the St. Johnsbury Peace Team went on for several years. That was 75, 76, 77. And we met well, more frequently than the coalition does now. But we didn't do a lot. One of the things we did was make an alternative Christmas catalog, or an idea, or a book of alternative Christmas presents. And we had a walk to raise money for something happening in Nicaragua. I think it was a hurricane, wasn't it? Yes. And we also had, you know, had speakers. We had Russell Johnson from AFSC, and Gene Sharp, who was a pacifist.
Can you tell me about growing up?
We lived in a suburban area outside of Boston. My father was a bookkeeper. My mother was an interesting person in that she was sort of ahead of her time, I think. She belonged to a group of women that studied psychology when that was new. They called themselves the psychos, and they read books and articles about the new psychology. And you know, my father wanted to be a writer. He wrote a few stories, but never sold very many. But we did a lot of things together, you know. Well, one of our favorite things was playing games. And we played on Sunday afternoon, and we had a neighbor who didn't approve of playing games on Sunday afternoon, And my father said, well, they have a car, and they go for a ride on Sunday afternoon. Isn't that as bad as playing games? We stay home and play games because we don't have a car. And my folks encouraged me to go to school, although we didn't have any money, because during the Depression my father wasn't working, and then he was sick, so he was at home for a long time, and he died in '39 while I was in school. And it was after that that Paul registered as a conscientious objector. He actually didn't go to a CO camp because he was supporting my mother, and at that time you didn't get paid if you went to a CO camp, and so he compromised by joining the Merchant Marine, and he went to radio school, and that turned out very well for him because he had been a chemistry major at Harvard, and he was working in a paper mill as a chemist. And he thought if he were drafted, he'd be sent to chemical warfare, which would be about one of the worst things you could think of. So it turned out well for him to be in the Merchant Marine.
What were some of the other people that influenced you in your...
Well, my mother especially. I remember things that she said. For instance, there's no such word as can't. She didn't accept that. And when we squabbled, my sister and I were close together in age, she would say, I don't care who hit first, there's no excuse for hitting back, which is unusual in this day. And I was a Girl Scout, and I think that influenced me a lot. I was a Girl Scout all through high school, and I became a Golden Eaglet, which was rather rare. I read a lot, but I don't think I read anything that influenced me about being a pacifist. Don't remember.
So when did the coalition start? When was?
Well, I think that was in '82 at the time of the nuclear freeze. Before that, there'd been something that Jay Craven started called Documentary Explorations, where we had soup and bread at different churches, and a movie, and generally somebody deleted discussion after the movie, and they were provocative subjects.
Do you have some of those in there?
Yeah. That's the first one. Ed Russell Johnson and Rosie the Riveter and Song of the Canary. And at one time, this was called the North Country Community Labor Coalition, something like that. I'm not quite sure of the title. But one of the things that we did, actually before we were the coalition, we supported the Fairbanks strike. And they had meals down in the labor hall, and we helped with that. And we helped with the Karen Silkwood film that Jay brought here. But the nuclear freeze was a big thing, and we worked hard at getting that onto the ballot and getting almost every town in Caledonia County to vote for it, which was really quite exciting.
How did you go about that?
Richard Huffross, who was a minister in Peacham at the time, was Caledonia County chairman, and there was a chairman for every town, and I was head of St. Johnsbury, and we just did a lot of phone calling and urging people to vote for it. And I remember we had a sign going across Main Street, a big sign that said this town voted for the nuclear freeze. And then in June of 1980, I don't know what it was. The thing that really got us started was the nuclear freeze movement, and we had to get a certain number of petition signers to get it on the ballot at town meeting.
And what was that, Bonnie?
Well, it was to urge the United States and the USR to stop producing nuclear weapons completely. And St. Johnsbury and almost all the towns in Caledonia County voted for the nuclear freeze. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 4 voted against it. Which really represented a lot of work. We did this during the winter before town meeting, so people spent a lot of time knocking on doors and standing in parking lots getting signatures, Carl being one of them. So that was exciting. Then in June of that year, we had a bus from St. Johnsbury and several buses from Vermont who went to New York for the March on Washington. It was a March for Peace, and well, then you didn't go.
Yeah.
And Dan Taranowski, well, wait a minute, are we beginning?
Yeah, start over again.
Right.
After the vote, we
After
organized
the vote,
that.
well, wait a minute, I should tell us what we were going to New York for.
Yeah.
It doesn't say here. We went to New York to... Does it say anywhere where we went there? There's the people who went. After the many towns in Vermont, 177 towns out of 195 towns voted for the nuclear freeze in Vermont, which was pretty exciting. And that spring, on June 12th, there were several buses went from Vermont to New York City. One from St. Johnsbury, I think one from Montpelier, and several from Burlington. So it was almost 3,000 people from Vermont. And we marched to Central Park and stayed there most of the day listening to speeches. And as we were marching, it was amazing. There were so many people on the sidelines who were really interested. And people kept saying, who's tending the cows in Vermont? How come there are so many Vermonters here? So Dan Taranowski was the head of our bus, and it was a very exciting day. A man named Teagle had made some signs that said 177 towns out of 195 voted for the nuclear freeze, and then there was a heading on each, St. Johnsbury or Barnet or Sheffield, and So we carried those signs, and when we were in Central Park, it was easy to find the Vermonters because those signs stood out so clearly. And there were many speakers in Vermont that day, and Dave Dellinger was one of them, I remember, although we couldn't hear much, as I recall. But it was a very exciting day.
When the nuclear freeze issue was over, what came next? Was the coalition formed at that time, or was that like the beginning of the...
Well, I don't think it was called the coalition. I think, yeah, this is the first flyer that we put out, and I don't think there's a date to it. Yes, it looks like the summer of '82. After that. Here's a notice about a Nagasaki Day rally in March in Newport. I remember Dave Dellinger spoke then, and there was a minister, Episcopal minister in Newport who had organized that group there. And we had a pretty good turnout, but there was a lot of ill feeling. I can remember somebody in a car, a truck parked right beside us who was honking all the time that Dave was speaking, so it was hard to hear him.
Bonnie, so far some of the key events were your brother's conscientious objector status, and then the St. Johnsbury peace team, and then the nuclear freeze. So there's this progression of you becoming more and more political, and I'm wondering what kind of changes what was that like for you? What kind of changes did you
Well,
feel happening?
I felt more secure about speaking out, certainly. But I didn't really want to be I wasn't ready to stand on the street corner for a long time. It wasn't until Janet came that we really wanted to do that. I wasn't ready to really speak out, and I never felt very confident enough to write letters to the editor as I should have, but it just looked like too much work, I guess, mainly. And but it was many years later when Janet Dennison came to Sutton to live, who encouraged us to actually do some vigiling, standing in front of the post office and handing out literature. And that's kind of hard to do, especially when there are people that you know who refuse to take the literature. But we think it's worthwhile because in the first place we get there at 7:30 so we can reach the students going to the academy, and we try to encourage them to read our literature, and it's terribly frustrating when a lot of them refuse. But we continue to do it. Whether it amounts to anything or not, I don't know.
Have you had positive remarks from people?
Yes, every once in a while somebody will stop and want information about the coalition, and really want to.
You talked about vigiling. Could you explain what that was exactly and what the purpose was?
Well, the purpose is to distribute information about some of our causes. And over the years, there have been many. For a long while, we did a lot with Latin America, with the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, and the war against the Sandinistas, and the United States support of the Contras, which we objected to. And also, we've always demonstrated on tax day. We've always demonstrated we have had demonstrations, vigils about American Indians, treatment of them, and people like Leonard Peltier, who was unjustly imprisoned. And we've had vigils about the School of the Americas in Fort Benning, Georgia, which trains a lot of Latin Americans to be terrorists. The people who killed Romero were trained there, and also the guy who was in prison, Panama, what's his name? Noriega,
Yeah.
was trained there. And we did a lot of vigiling during the Gulf War. In fact, we burned candles. That was in the winter, and I can't remember how often, but it seems as if we were there almost every night or every week. I remember the candles standing out there in the cold.
What kind of response did you get from the community?
Well,
for
we
that?
got a lot more people. Oh yes, we might have as many as a dozen, whereas ordinarily our vigils we have 3 or 4 people. Once in a while we'll have a few more, but mostly there are 3 or 4 of us, the loyal ones, Janet and Rose and I and the Dellingers, sometimes Ann Staffold.
What about from the community, people going by on the street
people
or
were
cars?
much more concerned during the Gulf War. Yes, and as I say, we had people like Amy Orlick came and stood with us. People from Bethlehem came. That was unusual.
What about your other friends and people you know in the community? What's their response to your work?
Well, I've often said I live in 2 worlds. My husband was a fire chief for many years, and he always felt that he shouldn't take any political stand at all. So he just didn't participate, you know, he didn't not support me, but he didn't really support me. But after he retired, he was a lot more tolerant, and he did sometimes sign petitions that I wanted signed. And I have a lot of friends who are, my oldest friends are Vermonters, and we just don't talk about these issues, that's all.
So let's go back to the coalition for a minute, Bonnie. After the nuclear freeze and after the march in Washington, what happened around the coalition? And also maybe at some point in your talking.
Well, the mission statement is rather a recent
Okay.
thing.
Okay.
We didn't really have one. We just called ourselves the North Country Coalition for Peace and Justice, and over the years it's waxed and waned according to the number of people who were interested, and the programs that we've had are varied lots of times according to people who were interested in a certain subject. We've had a couple of programs on capital punishment because Janet is very much interested in that. And now Ari Lindsay has been active in our group, and she's encouraged us to have some environmental programs, and they've been co-sponsored with the Fairbanks Museum, which is a big help because it gives us a wider audience. And we've had a couple of programs co-sponsored with the St. Johnbury Athenaeum, which is certainly a big help. When we've had an author, like we had David Dobbs, who wrote The Northern Forest, and that was at the Athenaeum. And then we had the breast cancer meeting with, I forgotten her name.
Virginia Sofa.
Virginia Sofa.
Yeah.
And she had written a book, so, and the Athenaeum had a grant to buy a lot of books on breast cancer, so that was appropriate to have that there. And we will do that again, but we've had Grace Paley, who is a Vermont poet and a peace activist. We've had her a couple of times at the Athenaeum. And those have been very well attended. As I say, we go with the flow. If we have people who are active, are coming to meetings and are interested in a certain project, well, then we'll go with that.
How have you decided on what the vigils will be, and what have been some of the vigils?
We just pick a subject that we think is appropriate. We've almost every year, for several years at least, we've vigiled around Columbus Day, changed Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, and that was mainly through the influence of Dave Dellinger, because he's most interested in that project.
War toys at Christmas, wasn't that?
Yes, we've done Don't Buy War Toys. We put an ad in the paper every year at Thanksgiving time. War toys, Christmas is for peace, don't buy war toys.
What do you do for fun?
Well, I like to read and I like to play games, but I don't have many people who play games. My family played a lot, but this is how I rationalize watching television, because I can watch television while I do this. In fact, I have trouble finding enough television that I want to watch to keep up with the braiding.
So what are you making there?
Well, it's going to be a rug. I don't really know how big or anything. It'll be round, obviously. Yeah, But it's hard to decide what colors to do. But I've been kind of frustrated because I haven't been working on one for a couple of months, but I decided I'd better get one started. It gives me some focus. I've made all I can for myself, but I have loads of material. I have a whole closet full that I'd like to use up. One of the joys of doing the rugs is making something out of nothing. You know, it doesn't cost anything because I have all this leftover material. But it's hard to decide what colors to put together. But I know a lot of people that I would like to make a rug for, so I'm not quite sure who will get this one. I'll see how it turns out.
You made one for the coalition to raffle off, right?
Yes, yes.
Fundraising?
Yes, and I've made one for 3 of my nieces, and I've made a lot of chair seats like that.
And you made the rugs in this room?
Yes, yes.
Great.
I made one for every room, except the kitchen. And I decided I would never make one as big as that, because I have to work on the floor, and I don't do well on the floor.
So you said just recently you started you put together a mission statement for the
yes,
coalition?
We put together a mission statement, and we're working on making it a little better. And Sarah Bowen prepared this flyer because the last flyer, or the brochure that we did was several years ago, and it's very much outdated. So this one tells some of the things that we have done, the kind of programs that we've had: healthcare, education, minorities, women, environment, and also tells about our newsletter and our videotape library, and how you become a member, and how you can help us raise money.
You want to read the mission statement? Bonney?
Our mission is to provide opportunities for citizens to educate themselves on issues related to justice, peace, and the environment.
All right, thank you. You've changed the name from
North Country Coalition for Peace and Justice to North Country Coalition for Justice and Peace. Well, Dave says there's no peace without justice, so he felt that justice should come first, and so we made that change.
I like that.
In fact, this mission statement is still in the process of being worked on.
Uh-huh. Bonney, tell me about the programs that the coalition organizes.
Well, the last couple of years, we have had 31 educational programs, and some of the subjects have been global concerns. We've had programs on Bosnia, Cuba, the Middle East, Chiapas in Mexico, Nicaragua, the World Bank, nuclear weapons, war tax resistance, and the Auschwitz to Hiroshima Peace March. We've had programs on local concerns, specifically poverty. That included housing justice, childhood hunger, and problems faced by low-income Vermonters. Healthcare, current legislative issues, possible environmental causes of breast cancer, and AIDS in Vermont. Education, the issue of school choice, and justice, crime in the correction system, minorities, Native American issues and the concerns of minorities in the arts, women, domestic violence, the history of the women's suffrage movement, the status of women in Nicaragua, and we've had 2 programs on the recent Fourth World Conference on women in Beijing, China. And then we've had programs on the environment, the survival of Vermont's northern forest, environmental damage caused by Hydro-Quebec, the future status of hydro dams on the Connecticut River, the possible link between pesticides and breast cancer, aerial pesticide spraying, and woodlot management for wildlife.
Wow.
And one of the big things, one of the most successful things we've done recently was give our legislative candidates an opportunity to discuss their views. We sponsored a candidates forum. We did have many other organizations who jointly sponsored, and that accounted for the good attendance, I think, because we had we must have had 150 people there, which was far above our ordinary programs. But we were very much pleased with that, and it was very well done. They talked about specific questions that we had prepared. Excuse me. Questions on poverty, education, and the environment. We didn't give them a chance to ramble or anything. We made them stick right to these important issues, and it was very successful.
What would you like to see for the future of the coalition? What are your goals for it? I mean, it's going really well.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, because I feel that we really need more people, more support. We're just barely squeaking by as far as money goes. You know, we have something like $200 in the bank, and you know, when we do a newsletter, we ask for money. We always get a little, that's enough to keep us over. And every year we have a yard sale, which does help us to get by. I would like to see us be a lot stronger, have a lot more people. Now, a man named Meaton Yersel, who was a professor at Linden State College, asked us to come to a meeting of progressives last week. And Janet Dennison and I went, and there were 2 young women there, and Mr. Yersel and Bob Dixon, who's also a teacher at Linden State College. Meaton's idea is that we should be more political. He says we can't really do any social change unless we get a change in Washington. And it's very important for us to work on getting better candidates. And I think he's probably right, but it's hard to get progressive candidates to run, and the Northeast Kingdom doesn't have very many. One of the things that came out of that meeting is a suggestion that we sponsor videos on Channel 2, on the public access channel. And so we are going to send them some of our videos from our library to put on the Channel 2.
That's good.
And also there was some discussion that we should meet more often. Not meet to discuss business and to plan. What we generally do is have 3 or 4 programs, and then we have a couple of planning meetings, and then after 3 or 4 months we have of programs, we have another planning meeting. So we never really have time to discuss a lot of business. Our planning meetings are just to plan programs, not other things.
So, what would you like to see?
Well, I think I would like to see the group meet more often, so we could maybe plan other things besides programs and vigils.
What kind of things?
I don't know exactly what, but
What do you think about younger people?
well, it's very frustrating because the nucleus of our group is all our people who are in their 70s, which is good, except that it doesn't allow for much future. We have a couple of younger people, Harry, Lindsay, and I was going to name somebody else who was young. Well, Marion and Peter Wagner are still supportive, but they don't come very often anymore. They're much too busy. And we would like more younger people to be active.
How about what about high school and college students? What do you?
The college has tried for several years to get a progressive group going. These 2 women that were at the meeting last week were part of the so-called progressive group, but they can't seem to find any students who want to participate in the progressive group. At one time, I can't say when it was, but it was 10 or more years ago, we did have a sort of a progressive group. When Sally Stoddard was at Linden State College, there was a progressive group there. But we scheduled a series of films up there, and no students came. It was just our people who came. So that was very frustrating.
What keeps you from getting discouraged? Or do you get discouraged?
Well, we get discouraged, anyway? But it's, yes. Well, people like Dave Dellinger, who are inspirations for us, because he keeps going, and he's sacrificed a lot more than most of us.
Do you have particular any particular female heroines that inspire you, as well as?
Well, when I was real young, I admired Amelia Earhart. She's not particularly a feminist or a an anti-war person or anything, but I admired her because she dared to do what she did. And her sister lived in our town, and I saw her. She came to a big rally that was given in her honor when she returned from her flight, and I remember seeing her as a child. But Eleanor Roosevelt has always been a hero of mine, and I can't think of anyone specifically. I admired Winnie Mandela for years until she sort of disillusioned us. But I'm still not quite sure what happened to her, what the situation was there, whether she's been misjudged. And Grace Paley she's a heroine of mine, because she's a Vermonter, and she was she still is very active in the peace movement.
How has your church work contributed to your
Well,
activism?
it's been very frustrating because so many people in the church are not interested in they don't think of the church in the same way that I think of it. I think of the church as an instrument for doing good in the community, and a lot of people's main interest is, just worshiping God and taking care of the building, and they don't feel that it's part of the church to go out into the world and make the world a better place.
Have you had some support there?
Oh yes. I've been on the mission committee for many, many years, and we've tried to do things. And of course now the church is sponsoring one of the community lunches in St. Johnsbury every week on Wednesday. And the church supports that by giving space, and that also costs money because of the heat and the cooking and but there are not a lot of church members who support it.
If you were going to speak to a group of high school students or college students and try to kind of inspire them of the importance of activism, what do you think it would take, and what can you think of saying to them?
Well, I don't know. I'm not as far as church goes, I'm not really a strong believer, but I feel that we should do things and do what the gospel says. Go out and take care of people and make the world a better place. And I think that that's what we should teach young people to do, not to have their goal is to make money and be successful, but their goal should be to do something for other people and make the world a better place because of that. But that's kind of weak, I guess.
Sounds good to me.
I don't know where that comes from. It's partly from Girl Scouting, I think, and partly from my parents, and from the church, of course.
Eleanor Roosevelt, maybe?
Sure.
So, do you feel hopeful about social change in general, in the bigger picture?
Not very. No, I feel I feel a little hopeful. went to Bernie's rally on Saturday, and you know, it's good to know that there's somebody in Washington who wants the military budget cut and wants to help poor people, and but he's only one voice, and he's part of a progressive coalition. I think there are 54 members of it now in the House of Representatives, and not too long ago, it seems to me there were only 17, so maybe he's making a little headway.
Mm-hmm.
And the attendance at that rally was better than lots of Bernie rallies I've been to.
Can you think of anything else you'd like to add right now to any of the things we talked about? Coalition or kind of personal reflections about the coalition work?
Well, the coalition has given me an opportunity to meet a lot of interesting people, and when I go to meetings, like the annual meeting of the AFSC is coming up next week, and David and Elizabeth Dellinger are going to be speaking, and the week after that is a Latin America Day, and I've gotten to know a lot of those people who are concerned about Latin America. Robin Cappuccino and Chrissy Damon have done a tremendous amount of work, and they're inspirations to me.
What about the core group of the coalition, and what has that meant to you? And
well, it's very good, because I know that I'm not alone. That Janet Dennison and Eleanor Belding and Rose Lesnick and the Dellingers and Jean Boardman will generally be there. And of course, Sarah Bowen, we couldn't operate without her. She's not as old as we are. She's one of the younger ones. I should have mentioned her with Aerie. But she does our newsletter on the computer. She does all our publicity. She sends our press releases to the Caledonian Record, and she puts out a flyer for every program that we have. She did this new brochure that we're working on. And she's going to read some poetry tomorrow.
So you became friends?
Yes, it's because of our common interests that we became friends. And Midge Whitcomb was also part of that group, but she works now at Ames. She works nights, so she doesn't participate in anything. She's too busy, but she's in our age group, but she's still working, so she can't do much.
You've talked about it being discouraging sometimes, and particularly when only a few people might come to a vigil, but are there other ways you can gauge the impact of the coalition on the community?
Yes. Over the years, we've developed our mailing list. When we used to have a table at the Danville Fair and the Lindenville Fair, we would get people to sign their names saying they wanted to be on the mailing list. So we got our mailing list up to about 400 names. And over the years, I take off a few if they don't show up or pay dues, but there are always people who send in an occasional check. They'll send in $25 or sometimes more, and saying, thanks very much for what you're doing. Now these are often they're people that we never see. but they just say, we're glad you're doing what you're doing and thank you. So that makes us feel like going on. Yeah. Most people are busy living their lives and don't want to put time into it, but they're willing to give us some moral support and put a little money into it. That's encouraging.